Hey, what's up? So before we move on from our little My Cool Font regular, I want to just briefly talk about the subject of layers. So whether you're in your font window with this button here, or you're in your, more likely in your glyph window with this button here, you can see a list of layers that you have. And layers are uh, different versions of the design that you've made, or you can keep anything in layers, and you can have an arbitrary amount of them, and it doesn't matter what name they have, what order they're in. There's no preconceived notions whatsoever about layers in RoboFont. They don't need to be named a certain way or anything like that. By default, you get foreground and background, but this can be easily, you can easily change the name to whatever you want, uh, and it shouldn't be an issue. Um, with navigating between layers, you can use this layer panel and double click to go between them. We also mentioned you can use this layer glyph layers menu for layer up and layer down, and that means holding down Option Command, and you can go up and down through the layers. There's also a hotkey that you can set in the glyph view hotkeys if you scroll down to layer up and layer down. I like to set those keys to minus and plus, or equals is above the plus. I mean, equals is below the plus sign on the keyboard, um, and that just allows one button instead of holding down three buttons to do that. One thing to note when you're going through layers, RoboFont tries to make sure you know what layer you're on. Sometimes it can be hard to tell. Occasionally, I've known students, and I've definitely done this myself. I've been working in the background for a bit on a design, and then I realized, oh no, I wasn't editing the foreground layer. I was editing one of the layers I have. So just try to make sure you know and pay attention to these areas up here where they're trying to tell you what layer you're on. Um, there is a special denotation given to this layer with the star on it. This is called the default layer. You can change which layer is the default layer by right-clicking or command-clicking on a layer and click and saying make default layer. The default layer is the layer that is exported when you generate a font. It's intended to be the font, the definitive version of the font that you're designing. All of your glyphs should go in that default layer, and all of these other layers are just intended for certain other uses. So you can change the color of a layer by double clicking and using your color picker. By default, it just shows an outline of your layer, but you can also give it a fill if you really want that. If you do that, I highly recommend you kind of dial down the opacity or whatever to make sure it's not too distracting. You can also show the nodes on the background layer. This might be helpful if you wanted to try to like line up one layer on top of another. You can also even show the X and Y coordinates of a point, but that might be a little bit too busy. So usually by default, just showing the outline is enough. This layers global layer sync settings is a setting that you can select to sync these various things across all the layers of a glyph, like syncing the metrics of a glyph and other things, but they're typically not super necessary If you want to learn more about that, there's probably a RoboFont uh, reference page on the website about it. So yeah, that's it for layers.